Joining us now, senior fellow at Americans for Fair Treatment and the author of The Parent Revolution, Dr. Corey DeAngelis. Corey, good to see you. I want to start off with, first, this issue of toxic masculinity and what I was just discussing in my monologue about how we need to get more men into the teaching profession. Talk to me about those two things.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Over 3/4 of the teaching profession are actually female, and then the other 20% or so are male. And how do we even know how masculine those males are even in the teaching profession? I'd say that the teachers unions are part of the problem here because, one, they're so overly political, they're so far left. They encourage people who are of the left to go into the school system. And then they also fight for policies that protect the lowest common denominator, and they fight against merit pay. And women are more likely to be risk averse, so they're more likely to flood into this kind of type of job security that's provided by the teachers unions, but not for the best performers. And so young boys need role models in the school system. They don't need people like Randy Weingarten who rail against conservatives every day of the week. And I think you're right, Tom, when you said earlier that this kind of leads to obedience. If you look at the school system throughout history, it was created in this factory model from Prussia to require more compliance of society. Why do you think we all kind of rolled over during COVID and just allowed the government to take control? I think it's partially because of all of this brainwashing in the school system for 13 years of our lives for 7 hours a day. It's hard to fight against that.
And it's only gotten worse because, I mean, these boys are not being trained to be men. They're trained to be this sort of amorphous, gender neutral, whatever. I don't even know. And then that makes you more pliable. All right, you mentioned the Randy Weingarten, who's not even a parent, by the way. The nation's largest teachers union, though, the National Education Association, has been putting out waves of anti-ICE propaganda. Also, according to your organization, at least 98.96% of the NEA's contributions went to Democrats in the 2024 election cycle. You recently wrote an opinion piece with a recommendation about how to diminish the NEA. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, one way to do it is to tell teachers to leave the union. They could no longer be compelled to pay union dues. And look, 99% of that funding that goes to the NEA and the AFT goes to political contributions to Democrats. It's a money laundering operation, and teachers, it would violate their First Amendment rights to be forced to pay union dues anymore. We won at the Supreme Court on this issue in 2018 in the Janus decision. And so you can escape these monsters at the teachers union. They don't represent you. You can opt out and join alternatives like the Teacher Freedom Alliance and get free liability insurance as a teacher. So that's one way to weaken the union, but also school choice gives families the ability to escape these far left institutions, pick schools that align with their values. And if they're not on board with all these anti-ICE protests, the money should follow the child. And that provides competition. If the teachers unions know that they can lose some funding if they act out and focus on politics as opposed to academics, well, guess what the teachers unions are going to do? They're going to focus on their members instead. They're going to focus on education as opposed to activism. So it's kind of a two-pronged approach: teacher choice and school choice.
Yeah, and there's also this idea that the NEA is somehow sort of sanctioned by Congress when they get some benefits from that. And you've proposed that Congress should get rid of whatever that sanction is and whatever those tax breaks are.
Yeah, they have a federal charter. It's the only union in the country that has this special privilege. They've got it in 1906, over 100 years ago, and they're a political organization. Why should any political organization have the backing of the federal government? So there's a bill in Congress to do that, to yank their federal charter. There's also another bill in Congress, a similar one, to use their federal charter against them, which would say, look, if you want to keep it NEA, go ahead, but you can't engage in politics anymore. So if that were to pass, the union would probably say, I'd rather you take my charter away. I want to engage in politics. So this would restore some sanity to the classroom.
Chicago Teachers Union President Stacey Davis Gates, in a statement recently called President Trump's school voucher program a scheme. She also said that the Trump administration's plan to expand school choice would harm black students. But here's what former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice had to say about school choice recently. Listen.
If you're really wealthy, you will send your kids to private schools. So who's stuck in failing neighborhood schools? Poor kids. A lot of them minority kids. So if you want to say that school choice and vouchers and charter schools are destroying the public schools, fine. You write that editorial in the Washington Post, but then don't send your kids to Sidwell Friends.
It was revealed that Davis Gates placed her son in a private school while bashing education options for low-income and minority children. What is some of the latest progress that we are seeing on school choice in the country?
Yeah, Stacey Davis Gates is a total hypocrite. She called school choice racist right before we found out that she sent her kid to a private school. But school choice is on the move. We have about 17 states that have passed universal school choice since 2020, and 27 states have already opted into President Trump's new nationwide school choice program, which is a federal tax credit. It's up to $1,700 per person, and you could either give that money to the government, or where they're going to flush it down the toilet, or you can give it to a scholarship granting organization like A Scholarships, for example. They've been around for about 26 years now, processing scholarships for over 100,000 kids. And so that's where I'm going to send my money, but it's a dollar for dollar tax credit. And so why would you not do it? It's going to supercharge the school choice revolution that's already happening. That rolls out next year in January 2027. So yeah. Big win on President Trump. Promises made, promises kept. He said nationwide school choice was his priority. Yeah. And mostly Republicans are opting in. We have one Democrat who's done the right thing, Jared Polis of Colorado. He said he's going to do it too. Yeah,
but look, at places like Tennessee, where I live, Texas, tens of thousands of parents are taking advantage of these different programs. High schoolers, even kindergartners, being encouraged to walk out of schools and take part in these anti-ICE protests led by activist teachers. Corey, you're a parent, I'm a parent. Give us some advice on what to do if your kid is being forced into this type of activism.
Yeah, you got to try to homeschool your kids if at all possible. I know it's really difficult, but also try to see if your state has a school choice program. I live in Texas, and we just rolled out a new universal school choice program. And in the first day alone, over 44,000 families already applied. That should show lawmakers that families want this. They demand school choice. They want alternatives to the one-size-fits-all system where there's more politics going on than anything else. No wonder why so many of our kids are failing to do basic math, reading, and writing. Despite us spending $20,000 per kid per year in the public school system. These anti-ICE protests go back to the NEA. If you look at their annual convention last year in Portland, Oregon, they passed resolutions to disagree with President Trump's immigration agenda. And they're also encouraging members to, wear blue to protest ICE. They're encouraging members to put up posters against Trump in their classrooms. So we need to really defund the NEA by, one, telling teachers to leave the union, but two, having school choice so that there's some accountability here.
All right, Dr. Corey DeAngelis, we're going to have to leave it there, but some progress being made and maybe more ahead.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.